Wow, I can't believe how things have gotten so convenient in the past couple of days. So this video is a continuation of the continuation. This information is so incredibly interesting and so well timed and so convenient that I need to make an entire video of it to complete this entire video game gender parity trilogy of some sort. So if you haven't watched my last two videos, it's gonna be linked down below somewhere. Anyway, let's get into a very interesting statistics that got posted just yesterday. Beyond 50-50, breaking down the percentage of female gamers by genre. That's right, we're gonna break the percentage of female gamers by genre so that we can know how many female gamers are playing what kinds of video games. Now, in my last video, I said that there are less female gamers who are serious gamers and more female gamers that are casual gamers because men have the tendency to sacrifice a lot more for video games than women, which is true for not just video games really. Let's see if that is accurate. You've probably heard about the often quoted statistics that about half of video gamers are women, illustrating how gaming is now a mainstream activity enjoyed by both men and women. This finding comes from the yearly ESA report and has fluctuated between 38% and 48% in the past decade, currently estimated at 41% in the 2016 report. Oddly, this statistics can have the exact opposite intended effect. Some gamers argue that the study bundles gamers across platforms and genres and is thus unrepresentative of the real PC console gamers, or that the apparent gender parity means that there are no longer gender biases in game design. A game dev we recently chatted with mentioned that some designers she works with still assume that only 5% of core gamers are women and that the quoted 41% of women are primarily casual gamers. Okay, guys, in my last video, I should be a hell of a lot more descriptive. I'm not talking about your opinion of what you think is a gamer. In the context of talking about market demographics in the video game industry, using the word gamer refers to serious games and not the casual gamers. This is important because I really hate when people think as if the two are the same when they both hit different types of demographics, requires different amount of sacrifice, and obviously hit on different types of people. This is what I've been talking about in the past two videos. You've heard people of how they want to make the gaming market more inclusive, and they cited the fact that half of women play video games. Adam Ruins Everything in the first video said that women make up half of the gaming market, in which he admits that women only make up half of them thanks to casual games. However, then he pivots into talking about PC and console gaming, which requires different amount of sacrifice and hits different types of demographics. I'm sorry people, you can't talk about making the gaming scene more inclusive if you cannot even use the statistics right to back up your argument. Even my dumbass 18-year-old self who got seen statistics realizes that in order to actually calculate the real gamers on the room, you cannot calculate people based on whether or not they have played video games, because I'm sure a lot of people have. You need to calculate whether or not they identify as a gamer, because that implies a level of seriousness on the respective hobby and therefore can be used as a consideration on trying to appeal into the serious gaming market. So if anybody, especially the feminists, tries to use half of the women or gamer statistics to bring more women into serious gaming, you need to be absolutely careful, because we're talking two different markets that appeal to two different types of people. So this is basically a survey which consists of 270,000 gamers, and 18.5% of them identify as female. Let's ask the question on the type of games that these people play. So here are the game genres and their respective games: action-adventure, action RPG, atmospheric exploration, casual puzzle, city building, first-person shooter, grand strategy, interactive drama, JRPG, family or farm sim, match 3, high fantasy MMOs, sci-fi MMOs, MOBA, StarCraft 2 is not MOBA, anyway, open world, platformer, racing, sandbox, sports, survival roguelike, tactical shooter, turn-based strategy, and Western RPG. So those are the genres, and those are the games of those respective genres mentioned in the article. I still find it baffling that they put StarCraft 2 in MOBA. It's an RTS game, Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's get into the gender parity, shall we? we're gonna get to the lowest game that women have an interest in to the highest game that women have an interest in. Try to guess which one is the lowest. Sports. Obviously, female sports aren't very popular after all. It's at 2%. But to be fair, I think gamers in general aren't really interested in sports games. Next is tactical shooter at 4%. Again, this depends entirely on how accessible the game is, and I think tactical shooter, especially Arma, is not really something accessible to women. Racing is next at 6%, which is not really surprising considering that the examples you gave are just typical racing games. Forza Horizon 3 was fun, but you know what would be more fun? A new Burnout game. The last one was meh. Come on, a new Burnout game, please. FPS is next at 7%, the fourth lowest. This number could be higher if we put in Overwatch, but they didn't include it for some reason. Forza Horizon 3 is a September 2016 game and they didn't include Overwatch here, which I find bizarre. Grand Strategy is at equal to 7% as well, which is not surprising considering that Crusaders Kings 2 is the kind of game that needs loads of tutorials in my honest opinion. But I find it surprising that it's actually a lot higher than first-person shooter, which is arguably a hell of a lot simpler to play. Turn-based strategy is next at 11%, so there are more women enjoying Civilization compared to women enjoying Call of Duty, which makes sense, I suppose, but the next one doesn't make sense. Open world is next at 14%, so stealing and violence and brutal murder off of GTA is totally okay for some women, which I find really amusing. Sci-fi MMOs is next at 16%, which, considering the complexity of them, especially EVE Online, I wouldn't be surprised, but I still find it baffling that it's actually higher than some of the simpler games below it. Action Adventure is next at 18%, Sandbox is also the same at 18%, Action RPG is higher than Sandbox at 20%, so more and more women are absolute masochists who wants to beat themselves hard in Dark Souls and Diablo, which is interesting and very sexy. City building is next at 22%, which I find incredibly surprising. Platformer is next at 25%, not surprising considering how popular Mario is. Survival roguelike is the same at 25%. Wow, women are absolute masochists, aren't there? FTL? Don't Starve? Jesus Christ. Western RPG is slightly higher at 26%, which is not surprising considering that 2 of them are BioWare games and 4 of which you can make your own characters. And this is where things get more interesting. JRPG obliterates the living hell out of Western RPGs by 33%. Wow, the Fujosies are running wild here. And now we get into the top 5 most played genres by women in video games. Number 5, slightly above JRPGs, are high fantasy MMOs at 36%, which is not surprising considering how popular WoW is, so all of you WoW basement dwellers can still have hope that there's still vagina for you. Number 4, interactive drama, beating high fantasy MMOs slightly at 37%, which is also not surprising considering that all of them are Telltale games, and if we put in Life is Strange in the mix, we would probably up the numbers more. Number 3, atmospheric exploration at 41%. This is where most female players find comfort, so they find a lot of comfort playing games like Journey and Gone Home. I can see the appeal for that, at least how it appeals for women in general. Number 2, casual puzzle at 42%. Considering how incredibly popular Angry Birds, Cut the Rope, and 2048 gets, I think it's safe to say that almost everybody play those games. And the number 1 genre that women plays more in video games is a tie between Family Farm Sim and Match 3 at 69%. That number has to be a coincidence, honey pop. So from these statistics, what can we tell? Well, I find it surprising that there are some women in video games who also prefer challenge, but in general, especially looking at the most genres that they play, women prefer more comforting, casual, and less action-y experience. This is again not surprising. This is very characteristic of women in general. Men just prefer more action games and women prefer more casual games. This also leads us into another interesting discovery on the survey. It turns out that, shock of all shock, men and women come into video games for various different motivations. The most primary motivation for men are the competition and destruction. Must be all of those toxic masculinities or something. And the most primary motivations for women are completion and fantasy, which explains why a lot more women play Final Fantasy 15 at this point. So, there you have it. That's the gender differences between video games and gamers. I want you guys to understand that as much as I want more women to be interested in video games, it seems like they have incredibly different interests on what type of games that they're interested in. It's not that there's sexism in gaming or something, it's just that women prefer different types of games, and these statistics show exactly that. I think game developers should stop trying to appeal into certain markets and start trying to actually make video games, make it really damn good, and let the market speak for itself. I'd rather let women to come into games more organically thanks to interesting games with great gameplay or great story or great premise, rather than forcing them into doing all of those. I would say it's not consensual if you do that. So, what are your thoughts on this entire thing? And also, what is your primary motivation on playing video games? And what's your favorite genre? Let me know in the comments down below. That's all for the video today, guys. If you like this, you can go ahead and click the like button and subscribe for more if you wish. You can support me on Patreon. And thanks for watching.